everyone, and welcome back to the United Star. I'm Prasham Kothari, and today it's an honor to introduce Arpit Sharma to the channel for the first time, hopefully, the first of many. He is an absolutely brilliant broadcaster and presenter of the Euros currently and the Champions League and everything that goes on Sony Sports India that's related to football. Arpit, welcome to our channel, and it's an absolute honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much. That's quite a fantastic introduction. It always brings a smile to my face because usually I'm the guy who's starting things off. So it's good to be on this end. But thanks so much. You've been generous with your compliments. It's good to be here. And like I said before the recording started, if there's any which way that I can help you guys in, I'm here, man. Go on.
Thank you so much, Arpit. Thank you so much. So let's get straight into it, Arpit. You're involved almost every other night broadcasting the Euros, bringing it to us. How has the tournament been in terms of the quality of football? How have you enjoyed watching the games? Because, in my opinion, it sort of started off slowly, but now things are really picking up.
Uh, Overall, I think we've all been a little surprised as to how open some of the matches have been. As a
Mm,
football fan, you want to watch matches which are open. That is not necessarily the best tactic for a lot of coaches, though. So now that I've been with footballers, I understand that point of view a little more. Earlier, I used to have just a generic fan point of view, so I'd be like, "Are goal maro, attack karo," and that's how you usually think.
yeah.
But all of us, including the ex-footballers, have been very surprised as to how open some of the games have been,
Mm,
including that absolute mad game that we've just witnessed between Portugal and Germany. Uh,
mm,
so, and the thing is, it's not been an outlier. Like that game had a lot of goals, so it's an outlier. But in terms of just the football, I know you mentioned a couple of matches, not that exciting. I'm pretty sure we might veer towards England, in that conversation as well. But tournament football, from what I hear from these guys, is usually it tends to be cagey because at the end of the day, you don't need to win big to win the tournament. Uh, Case in point, again, England, where they mentioned that even though the people are saying, "Oh, they've not been playing well, expectations are high, they're disappointing us and all," they've still not lost, and
mm,
eventually they could go on to win the tournament just by doing what they're doing.
yeah.
So, but having said that, the Euro 2020 has been super fun to watch. Like it's been super fun to watch. The football's been great. Uh, like some of the teams playing together, like the dark horses, which now everyone's standing up and saying like, "Whoa, wait, what is Italy doing?" But it's been a lot of fun to watch, not just cover. Like when we go and sit down and watch those games, we become fans, and we all have enjoyed it a lot. Especially me personally, I can tell you, it's been super fun to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned the team Italy. I think you just need to look at them to see how expansive the tournament has been because generally they're the team that want the 1-0 result and put it in the bag and go home. But somehow they're going out there scoring 3 goals in both their games, I think. And
Yeah.
it's been that kind of a tournament, and you're absolutely right. And it's thrown up the last 3 games. If you'd say England, Portugal, and France, you'd say they were the favorites going in, and they've all sort of dropped points now. So, do you see some upsets in the group stage, or do you think the format where the third team qualifies does not allow for that kind of an upset to happen?
Honestly, the format uh, is supposed to support it, but with what happened with Portugal last night with conceding four, the format is not going to do anything about it. Ideally, you'd want teams like Portugal, Germany, and France all to be in the next round. Uh, but, but because of what has happened and with the goals being scored, it's very open right now. You can't say right now that Portugal will definitely make it through. You know, uh, had they got a point, obviously everyone's been saying 4 points should be enough to at least be one of the top contenders to make it through to the next round. But the way the games have gone about, what has happened last night in that group, France drawing as well, I don't think it's a given for those big names that are in everyone's minds to make it through. There will be upsets, which in a way sounds good, because we're going to be covering them. Uh, and Italy, especially, we like to
Hmm.
mention because I've covered the Serie A now for 3-4 years, and it started when I started covering Serie A. I just finished the World Cup, so the whole conversation was about how Italy had failed. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's kind of intriguing. I think I started the Serie A broadcast pretty much when Italy's unbeaten run started. I'll need to go back and check this because 2018 is when I
Yeah, yeah,
started
yeah,
Serie
yeah,
A. Wow,
yeah.
I must just be the lucky mascot for them. I need to get this across to the. I've never thought about this. This is the first time it's just come to me while talking to you. But yeah, I think I started post World Cup. So obviously it must have been at least June, July, August, and yeah. So Italy are definitely one of those teams you must watch out for. And now everyone is saying it. We've been saying it for a while, especially with the qualifying, because we had to read up about all the matches, and then that's when we realized, and everyone's talking about the streak. Oh my, they won 10 matches on a trot. They've not conceded a goal. They've not conceded a goal in 2021. So they are definitely a team that a lot of the other big teams, who, if they make it through, would not want to come up against.
Absolutely. And so let me ask you this: the Sony campaign, of course, in India is "Meri Dusri Country." So, what is your Dusri country, so to speak?
Uh, so if you had asked me this at the start of the tournament, not out of wanting to support the team to win, but just out of thinking who was going to win it, I would have said France.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'd said France before the World Cup as well, and they went on to win it. So I think I'm very cool. But now, just for everything that has happened, I might, now grow a loyalty a bit towards Italy. And like I said, we broadcast Serie A, we've covered the Serie A. I speak to Adriano often, who is in Italy often. And I keep seeing his tweets and his emotions, whenever Italy does something. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to make Italy Meri Dusri country now.
Right. So, on that note, I want to ask you a couple of questions related to broadcasting. And obviously, you
Okay.
are a Manchester United fan as well. And it's on and off, we do show up in the Champions League as well. so,
Oof.
so,
Yeah.
when we do, and when, let's say, for example, I'm sure the connection to Italy may not be as strong, but while broadcasting, how do you keep that sort of bias aside? So let's say, for example, you're on air when Rashford scores that penalty against PSG. You're just like, it's in the dying minutes. You're going to come on. You're prepared, everything, and then suddenly that penalty goes in. Does that sort of, how do you keep those emotions in check then?
Uh, okay. I've never really thought too much about it, but my job as a presenter is to, you know, help the show flow. Basically, my job as a presenter is not to uh, enforce opinions, so as to speak. Uh, and while I may be happy that Rashford has scored, and I might have celebrated as well while we were getting ready for the studio. When I'm there, I'm not there to talk about my opinions or uh, to celebrate something that is personal to me. I'm there, and there's a lot of people who are involved in this show. So a lot of times, people look at me, look at my guests, but there are other people who are governing what goes on in the show as well. So my job over there is just to ensure that it all happens according to that. If I was a fan and I have wait, what do you mean? I am a fan and I've watched football for so many years. I've seen presenters, right? And I'm pretty sure they've had their teams that they support, their bias as well. I don't mind a presenter saying, I'm happy. I don't mind that, you know. It's fair. They're allowed to, like Manish Bhasin, I know, likes Leicester. So if he's doing a Leicester match and he says, well, I'm kind of happy that they won, I'm as a fan, I'm okay with it. I wouldn't be okay with it if a team played bad and as a fan I'm trying to defend them. You understand?
Right.
So that is where I think as a presenter that's not me. So I want to keep all of the emotions out of it, whether they're happy emotions or sad emotions, whatever it is. I want it to be the conversation that the experts have. I want it to be the show that the producer wants it to have. And the minute I have those goals clearly listed as what I want, it's not honestly that hard to do it. Having said that, uh, when we did the UEFA, the Europa League final, and because it was a Facebook and it was a little more casual, I was very open about what happened in that match with respect to the penalties and how disappointed I was, because it was a more casual, attitude. There was fans involved in the conversation. So
Yeah.
and I know most of them will be Manchester United fans, and I'm not going to sit there and try and be absolutely ignorant to emotions at that moment because of the atmosphere. But when I'm on a show where the fan will want involvement is unfortunately lesser. It's just the opinions of the guests, the flow of the show that the producer wants it to be, the way it should appear to the fans. At that time, it's not that hard, honestly. I'm pretty sure if you were in that situation as well, you would do a good job of it.
But I want to ask you this: that at some level, does it diminish sort of, let's say United are to win, like let's say a Champions League, and you're in the studio, and like that moment after you win it, everyone's buzzing, and you are there, being all, oh, what happened and who passed it to whom? Does it sort of diminish being a fan at some level?
Okay. I know what you're asking because I can't celebrate as much as maybe I
Yeah.
would want to as a fan. Uh, I wouldn't use the word diminish. Maybe I'd use the word that I can't be as expressive as a fan
Mhm.
as I would want to be. And yes, I have to be controlled. So obviously, the euphoria that I'm feeling and the euphoria that I'm expressing is very different. So you are right in the way you're asking that question. That my time to enjoy that moment and celebrate it is not as much as the fan in me would want it to be. But considering the job I have, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think you'd be okay because if you're able to interview Marcus Rashford and Yuvraj Singh on the same on the same screen at the same time, I think you'd like let go of that few minutes of not.
I would let go of a lot of things, and like I said, we know. I know I'm lucky to be doing this because I didn't expect to be here. I started off as a regular guy trying to get his engineering degree, worked in IT for 4 years, never thought of being in this field. And even when I was working in IT, we used to have like 9:30 reporting. I used to watch these Champions League matches midweek and then go groggy-eyed to work. So I was that fan. Now, there was no expectation of being here ever. Like a lot of young guys I know have these expectations now or ambitions of being in sports, either producing or hosting or just being there, doing something in sports. I never had these ambitions. It just happened that life paved the way, which I luckily followed, and I reached here. So I don't forget that ever. So I know I'm very lucky in that respect. And like you said, when I have days where I'm interviewing Marcus Rashford and Yuvraj Singh, both players who Marcus obviously not as much as Yuvraj because Yuvraj ko to we've been watching since when.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, this job is good. It's a good job.
No, absolutely. And I was going to ask you, obviously, it'll be stupid to ask how it felt, but on a sort of different note, I want to ask you that does it feel almost like, do you yet get the goosebumps? Like, let's say, for example, when you sit with Baichung Bhutia, for example, or Louis Saha is on the screen, do you yet get the goosebumps as to, what if, rather than goosebumps, also, are you worried? What if I say the wrong thing at the wrong time, maybe?
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, with the UEFA Euro 2020 only, I felt it when Baichung Bhutia walked into the studio, and we've all grown up. I mean, you guys are younger, so let me talk about me. I've grown up at a time when cricket was the predominant sport in the country. You literally didn't watch anything else because there were no channels and there was nothing to watch except cricket. So, like any youngster at the time, I grew up wanting to be a cricketer. So I knew the cricketers, everyone who was playing, a new player coming in, we knew him. We used to buy the magazines and we knew who the players were. We didn't know football players, but we still knew who Baichung Bhutia was, in spite of not following football, not knowing football. So even when we'd go on, and we used to play football in the worst way possible, which was like how in Lagan they run after the same ball. That's how we used to play football because no one told us how to play. But we'd all be like, I am Baichung Bhutia, I am Baichung Bhutia, not even knowing what he does on the pitch. So that is the man that I've grown up, talking about. And then I'm sitting next to him in the studio. So I'm very concerned the first few times I'm there. I'm definitely concerned. I'm worried about saying the wrong thing, like you said. I do get goosebumps. I felt it this time before our broadcast started. Uh, Louis Saha, like you mentioned, again, Louis Saha, comparatively, even though obviously he's played at a massive level, I had it lesser because with Baichung Bhutia, my whole childhood growing up was like, oh, Bhaichung Bhutia, Bhaichung Bhutia. The other time I had it, and I'll be very honest, when we had Alessandro Del Piero on our show, and my producer just walks in and says, "You're going to talk to Alessandro Del Piero." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, you have to interview him. You have to have a conversation with him." My hands went cold. My hands went absolutely cold. And even when I did the show with him, and he was on screen the first time, the show went all right because no one really said you messed up. But I know while I was holding that pad, right, the whole pad was just wet and my hands were cold and sweating at the same time. It's so weird. So I do get that. I still get that every single time.
Absolutely. And I can imagine, because it doesn't go away. Like tomorrow, if let's say you interview another great player, United legend, a cricket legend, it's always going to be the same. But then how do you deal with moments like what unfortunately happened in the Denmark game the other day? Without talking much about what happened, how do you deal with those moments as a broadcaster? Because as a fan, I'll tell you, I was walking on the road, and I literally could not feel my legs when I was looking at the game on the app, and I could not feel my legs when it was happening. And then to have to like go on air and talk about it, how do you deal with that?
Uh, I can only talk about that now because it's happened. But I can swear to you, if you asked me that before June 12th,
Yeah.
how do you? I wouldn't know, because honestly, you could think about it, and such an incident. Even as a fan, I've not really seen such an incident in the entire time that I've watched. I've heard, but never in such a high-profile tournament have I been watching something and seen something like this. I've seen injuries. We've all seen injuries. I remember it was Aaron Ramsey, I think, who got injured, if I'm not mistaken, where his leg broke, and I could see the
Yes.
players around, and and it was devastating that his leg broke, right? And we were all affected by it. But that was the extent of it. This was just, it was just, I mean, something else. So today I can tell you, I can't tell you how to deal with it because there was no flowchart for me to follow when that happened. I didn't
Yeah.
sit there thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do because this is what has been taught to me. Nothing was taught to me. No one, there was no precedent for this. So we all just sat there, and there's no precedent for this as a broadcaster as well. There is no guidebook that says, touch wood, he's fine now, but there's no guidebook that says, oh, if something happens to a player, what do you do? And I know a lot of people were talking about how it should have been dealt with, but like we said, there was no precedent for this. We were just trying to adapt, and we were just waiting to see a hand come up, something come up to say that he's fine. And the longer that wait went on, we started realizing, okay, this is wrong. And I'm with ex-footballers, and I can see their faces turning, oh my God, this is not what you want. And we then obviously got information that the match was suspended. And again, as a broadcaster, you need to figure out what to do next. And we came into our studio, I remember, and I don't even think I got too many instructions on that one. They just said, stick to the facts. I think that was the clearest thing that was said to me, was stick to the facts. Don't. And I think Ashley Westwood helped out as well, because he said, let's not speculate about what's happened. To be very honest, given a choice, I would have not wanted to be in that position. It was freaky. It was scary. It was undoubtedly one of the toughest times I've had to be an anchor. So I cannot tell you how to deal with it, unfortunately, because there is no set way. But these things where you just stick to the facts, maybe. Don't let the emotions override you, which is again hard. I know that day I had a tough time keeping them in check. But that's about it, man. Just stick to what you know. Don't let the emotions get the better of you. Try to hold it together, I guess. That's about it. And hopefully no one will ever have to deal with something like this ever again. Even though I'm telling you ways to deal with it or maybe do something, I just hope no one has to be in that situation. And not from my point of view. Not key anchor should be fine. Just players, man. You don't want to see that. They should be fine.
I think the scenes on the pitch were truly sort of shocking or horrific, you could say.
Very disturbing. Very disturbing.
And touch wood, he's fine now. He's out of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
hospital as well, so that's great news. It's a great
yeah.
relief for everyone involved in football, especially for a player whom we've seen play for so
Can
long.
I just say this? Can I just say
Yeah,
this? That moment, right, when it happened, we were getting ready to do the halftime show. So we were watching it, and we were talking about how Denmark hadn't done enough, and our conversation was about football. And then this obviously happened, and we freaked out. And I remember at that moment, my phone started getting so many messages from people who don't even watch football, who were just messaging me to say, "What has happened? Tell us what has happened."
hmm,
It's that's the impact of what happened on the pitch that day, that people who don't watch football, people who aren't following the Euro, started messaging asking about Christian Eriksen.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's move a little forward. Again, let's stick to the broadcasting bit as well. So most of these games that you cover happen at begin at about 12:30, sometimes 1:30, depending on sort of whatever summertime, winter time, etc. And you seem to look immaculate at each one of them. So how do you manage to do that? How many hours a day are you sleeping there?
Okay, one, you're obviously being generous. I do not look immaculate all the time, that's for sure. uh, to be very honest, I like the early to bed, early to rise cycle. I prefer that. I'm a morning person. So it's not the most ideal thing to cover a match that starts at post midnight. Uh, you have to adapt. What you try to do is obviously try to get some sleep in the afternoons, usually of the nights that you have the matches. Post the matches is the toughest bit for me, because even though I go home and say it's 4 o'clock, 9:30 is literally the latest I can sleep to, even after forcing myself to. Especially at home, where I have to, the maid comes and I have to get up in the morning, and I'm hungry. I need to eat something. So that is the toughest bit for me,
Yeah.
because I'm up. Even if it's 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep, I'm up and I'm dazed throughout the day. If I have to do a match the next day, the only way I can do it is if I sleep in the afternoon. So what I try to do then is eat like a very heavy breakfast, go to sleep again for like 2 hours, or try and stay awake till lunch, eat a nice lunch, and then get like deep sleep. And if that time if someone interrupts my sleep by maybe the bell ringing or the phone, usually I keep on silent. My mood's just gone after that. That's the tough day. The next day is the tough day.
Right. And are there some games that start at 12:30 or 1:30 and you're like, अरे यार ये game कहाँ मतलब कुछ मतलब it's an irrelevant game, or like the game begins and then you're like अरे बाप रे boring सा चल रहा है, then how do you deal with that? How does it feel in that situation?
I'm not. See, okay, to make it sound politically correct, yes, there are some games that don't live up to the excitement of other games. Uh, but again, this is my job. Like we mentioned, that this is something that I enjoy. So, and what's actually happened, um, having an interaction with ex-footballers, is that even games that earlier, as a fan, I didn't enjoy so much, now I enjoy a little more, maybe because there are aspects of it that I never saw before. Because like I said, as a very regular fan, my whole point of view used to be, it needs to be open goals. You need to keep attacking and all. Now my aspect has changed into where I see a defensive midfielder even making a simple interception, but how effective it is. Things which I never saw before. So there are times when even games may appear to be not that interesting, but they're actually better than what I would have experienced them just as a fan. And coffee, man. Coffee is the answer. Like in the night, especially. I'm a chai person, but in the night, usually coffee is the answer.
So what you're essentially also saying is that from going to absolutely loving and only understanding the Fergie way, you've gone to respecting the Jose Mourinho way, is what you're saying.
Mourinho. Oh, wow. Nice. Well done.
uh,
Well done.
so,
Yeah,
as
I
a
guess you
United
can say
fan, I
that.
think that's an interesting transformation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
So tell me about more about your sort of being a United fan in all of this, and being amongst this sort of the protests are going on, and half most of the supporter base now wants to get rid of the owners. We want good transfers. We want to win trophies. What's your take on, let's say, for example, Oli as a manager? Do you think he deserves another year? He deserves to be backed. Has he not been backed enough? How would you rate his performance?
Uh, I said this, uh, I think halfway through the season last year, uh, and I said no one should ask for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to leave for at least 2 years, and I maintain that. There are things which he's done which, as a fan, again, I might look at it and say, "Arey, you could have done this," especially, and I know everyone will point out, the substitutions in last season's semi-final, the substitutions in this season's final. But I will stand by what I said and said what fans should do. I will say he deserves the time. What I have seen over the past seasons, I have liked. There have been high points which we didn't expect. Beautiful to watch. Sorry.
No. You just went on mute for a second, but go on now. It's fine.
Okay. So, yeah, I said there's been good football. There have been high points. There's been free flowing movements. There have been good players who've improved a lot. There have been players we'd written off who've come back and suddenly become most important players in the team. So, yes, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer deserves time. I said it last season, 2 years at least. Okay. Uh, is he backed by the board is something that I don't know. Because we tend to look at things from a very, peripheral point of view. There's a lot of things that happen inside a football club, as I now know, meeting all these people. But yes, he needs a lot of support, especially if he's still unsure about his substitutes. If he's still not ready to bring on a Diallo or a Donny van de Beek, then yeah, he probably needs more. We definitely need a few good acquisitions in this transfer window.
Yeah.
Are you going to ask me which players I want? Should I just say it now?
Go ahead. Say it. Go ahead.
So I want Haaland. I know they're talking about him going to Chelsea. I'm like, if you're spending money, I'm not that crazy about pursuing Sancho to the limit. I'm not.
You and Southgate both.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player, and he does what he does pretty well. But I don't think United are in dire need of what he brings. I think United are in dire need of. Thankfully, Cavani is doing well, but someone again who will go on for a while. If Cavani can, I'm all for it. I love Cavani. We need a defender, a really good defender who we don't, get nervous every time a match starts. And if you ask before a match, you think we'll get a clean sheet, and United fans will be like, even though we got more than we expected last time around. But yeah, so Haaland for me is the player that I really, really want to see at United.
So I am of sort of similar thought as you. I think we should sign Harry Kane or Haaland, but either one of them. I personally don't
Harry
want
Kane.
Haaland. Yeah, I think we should sign Harry Kane. I personally don't want Haaland because I feel he's going to bounce in 2 years and go to a Madrid or a Barcelona, because he seems the kind of player who wants to sort of go there eventually. And I feel if Kane transfers, this is going to be his last transfer, and he'd be with us hopefully for the next 5 or 6 years, injury free. He can help us, I think, win something at least. But yes, I'd rather take a striker as well. I've seen a lot of fans talk about the right wing, but I'd rather take a striker. I think we don't score the chances.
The simple thing is, and I'll say, the simple thing is, Sancho is great at what he does. Dan James, when you see him play for Wales, right? And I don't know if you've seen the Wales matches.
Yeah.
He's been crossing balls in non-stop from the left, which is not even his preferred position, but he's gone there and he's been crossing balls in. He crossed the ball for Anthony Elanga to score with a header. If we have a player who can do that, and he doesn't get to do that because he doesn't get to be on the pitch, why are we pursuing a person who can run on the side and maybe cross the ball in? Because we have someone like that. And yes, there'll be people who say, oh, Sancho's much better than Dan James. But watch Dan James play for Wales, man. And if you put a Cavani in that Welsh side right now, he'll just relish Dan James running on the left and putting a ball in. So,
right.
Yeah, that's
so let me ask you this there, Arpit. Lindelof, Dan James, Paul Pogba, Fred, all of them seem to be doing exceedingly well on these international competitions. And somehow for United, they have these off games, not very good games, not particularly good. So how does it feel watching that?
Uh, I, again, I had this discussion with the Manchester United official fan group, and where they were like, Lindelof. This is one of the first matches I think we lost. Was it to Crystal Palace or who did we lose to?
Hmm.
And they said we need to get rid of Lindelof. And I said Lindelof is not a bad player.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
is a decent player. So I'm
Yeah.
yes, there will be defenders you will find better than Lindelof, but he's not a bad player. Fred, no one is going to argue. United fans has done very well at times for Manchester United. So I don't think the difference is that much. Uh, you mentioned Dan James. Dan James doesn't get to play that often for Manchester United for whatever reason it is. I don't know. Pogba is the one outlier for me in this entire discussion because Pogba looks brilliant for France, and I do believe one of the reasons he looks brilliant for France is Conte, because Conte will look anyone around him look better than they are because of everything that he does. So Pogba doesn't have to run back as much, because Conte will be there to cover whatever.
Hmm.
So I guess he has lesser responsibility in those terms, so he can express himself more. Having said that, at times at United, I've just hoped for more from him, not even defensively, just holding the ball up. He seems very casual. He seems like he wants more time on the ball. So that is the one player who I see a massive difference in terms of the way he plays for United and the way he plays for country. Lindelof, I think, does a decent job for us. There is something else that causes our defensive frailties. I don't know what it is. Maybe uh, it could be something about the coaching. Again, like I said, because you remember who did we concede against when all the defenders were at the half line in the Champions League and the ball just
Istanbul Başakşehir.
Istanbul, Besiktas, yeah.
Yeah.
So that can't be a player thing, right? You can't say ki Lindelof is bad. That's why there have been times where it seems like the system only is not supporting it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, in these terms, these players, I don't see that much of a difference. And the Brazil, I mean, national team obviously is something else. Only however weak they are like one of the top teams.
Right.
And the French team as well. It's just one of the best teams out there. And Manchester United is not in those terms as good as probably the French national team right now.
Right. So, Arpit, apart from the broadcasting you do and the thousands of games you are forced to or want to watch, I'd let you decide that. How much football do you watch other than that, or do you prefer watching cricket then?
Oof. I don't watch as much cricket as football. Let me be honest. If someone's hoping to hire me as a cricket presenter, I hope that doesn't work against me. But I watch more football than cricket. Football is my number one sport. Uh, I end up, and here's the thing: even before I became a presenter, right? Uh, any game that I could see on TV, I would, even if it was the I League, which a lot of people say it doesn't
But do
have
you
the
do
same.
that even now? Do you do that
I
even
don't
now,
have
or is
time
it sort of
now. I don't have time
yeah?
now because at the time when all the matches are, I'm already watching something that I'm covering.
Hmm.
So, like midweek, I'm watching the Champions League, the Europa League. Then on weekends, I'm watching the Serie A and the Premier League, which I can because I support Manchester United. Uh, but yeah, and I didn't watch too much of the La Liga ever since it went on to Facebook. I didn't watch too much
Yeah.
of it. I didn't watch the Bundesliga because apparently it went away from everywhere on TV. So I
Hmm.
prefer watching the matches on TV.
Hmm.
I still don't have the habit of watching them regularly on my phone or laptop or something. So yeah, any football, if it's on, I will watch it. If I have the time, I will watch it.
Right. And has it happened that the Manchester Derby is there, for example, and at the same time you're covering Parma play Udinese or something like that?
Of course, things like that have happened, and I've watched both matches. To be very honest, we've got a multiple TV setup, or at that time, then I bring out the phone and say, okay, we'll keep a track. We are used to watching multiple matches anyway. We've
Hmm.
uh, we've done that. Uh, the Europa League had multiple matches going on, and you need to be
Hmm.
able to watch maybe not everything in its entirety, but at least the big moments you have to watch them to do it. So yeah, when something like that happens, I keep my eye on both games.
Right. So before wrapping up, what do you see? Say, let's say for example, what do you want to present? What's that one event? So you've done the World Cup, like you said, Serie A, Euros. What is the one event you see yourself presenting, or where do you want to see yourself as a presenter going forward?
Uh, so here's the thing. Might sound unusual. I don't um, have too many of these plans. Uh, One, because I've become the kind of person who doesn't look too far ahead. Like even when people ask me, to travel, and they say we can travel 2 months later, and I say, wait, let's just get past these 2 weeks and then we'll see.
Hmm.
So I've become this person who just looks at where he is and maybe a couple of weeks ahead. Second, as luck would have it, God's been kind. I've hosted the World Cup and I'm now hosting the UEFA Euro 2020. I'm hoping the Champions League, which is arguably one of the best tournaments of football. So, in those terms, in terms of profile of tournaments, I've experienced it already.
Hmm.
So, again, like, what do I place about these tournaments, which are already
Hmm.
some of the most high profile tournaments? So as such, I don't really have anything that pops up immediately that says that this is what I want to do. I'm very happy where I am.
Hmm.
Uh, if something comes up and I like it, I would love to do it. But there isn't something that immediately pops up. And having said that, I would hope to host the World Cup in Qatar. It's not like I don't want to, but I'm just saying in terms of that profile, there's nothing that gets bigger than most of the tournaments I've
So
already
then
hosted.
let me ask you this then: the one
Yeah.
person doesn't have to be a player whom you'd absolutely want to interview from sort of, let's say, Manchester United or football. Like, what's the first name that you'd be like, this is the interview I want to do?
Oh wow. Okay. Give me a second to think about it. Let me say both. Let me think Manchester United and let me think the world of football as well. Uh, who would I like to talk to at Manchester United? And you're saying current players because
No, anyone,
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer
just
would definitely be.
anybody from the
I mean, come
past,
on. Then Alex Ferguson, of course. Sir Alex Ferguson. Who else?
right?
There is no
Yeah.
other name that springs to mind. Just to if even if I go, then I say like, "Hello, how's your day been?" And he says it's been great, and that's the end of the interview. I was just like, "Wow, I've done something." Yeah, that would be something I would look forward to doing. Uh, in world football, hmm, who would I want to have I may want to have a conversation with Zinedine Zidane.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I'd have
I
said. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no. Yeah, I just said Zinedine Zidane would be someone I would be very intrigued to have a conversation about Madrid, about everything that he did, about when he played, and
Hmm.
obviously one of the most controversial moments of his career, which I'm not sure he would want to talk to me about, but you never know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think there's any United fan, at least from our generation, that wouldn't pick Sir Alex
Oh
Ferguson. I
yeah,
think it's, I don't think I'd
yeah.
be able to, I don't think I'd be able to get a question out of me. But I think in world
Same
football,
here, same here.
I'm sure you'd do a great job at it if you do get the opportunity, and then Sony will probably play that on loop. But uh, from world football, I actually would have wanted to interview Diego Maradona. Of course, he's unfortunately passed away, but I think that would have
Hey,
been
yeah.
that would
I was
have been an
sticking to people who there was still a chance of getting in
yeah.
touch with and meeting in
Then
person.
I want to say Ronaldo, but he's obviously Manchester United, so I can't say that. But yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
Ronaldo would be cool. Yeah.
yeah. So, Arpit, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. It's been fantastic and it's been wonderful. Is there anything you'd want to tell our subscribers before leaving? Anything, last comments?
No, man, just enjoy the football. Keep supporting us. That's this specifically Manchester United. So hang in there. I know there's a lot of fans who've gone through some troubled times. Uh, don't be too harsh. Is one thing I would request the fans to be. Because I know I've been there. I know how we tend to think. Uh, Sometimes there are decisions made which aren't as black and white as we think they are. So
Mm-hmm.
support the team. I know you'd want to see changes. I know you'd want to see better performance. I know you'd want to, you know, in the deepest part of your heart, thrash Liverpool 6-0 when we play them next, which might not
You'd,
happen.
you'd especially
But
want that considering your co-host or your friend is a Liverpool fan.
oh, that would be something. Right? We have this little thing going on where every time Liverpool plays bad, I tend to say something to him, and every time Manchester United plays bad, he says something to me. It's fun. I mean, there's no actual animosity between us, but yeah, we do enjoy the little banter as fans. Uh, and he's crazier than I am. Let me just say this: you've spoken to him, I hear. So
Yeah.
he's absolutely mental. He has like tattoos and all. He's I have no comparison in terms of being as hardcore a fan as he is. He wins that race hands down. But yeah, just
Yeah.
enjoy the football. Try to be not so harsh on players and coaches and managers and anchors and their guests sometimes. And enjoy the rest of the UEFA Euro 2020, man. And keep sending in your opinions. This is something I would ask fans. Like, send it across. We always love to see what fans are thinking and what, especially about players, countries, and all. And we do try to plug it in during our shows. So yeah, just
Absolutely.
enjoy yourself and stay safe because
Fantastic.
that is something that is very necessary these days.
Yeah. So, guys, you've heard it from Arpit. I hope you all enjoyed listening to this. I know there wasn't a lot of talk about football and tactics, but there is a lot of it on his show when you tune in every night to watch the Euros or the Champions League. So, thanks, Arpit, for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Do subscribe to our channel and show us some love. Thanks for tuning in today, and we hope to see Arpit more often on the channel, maybe covering a Manchester United game the next time. Till then, see you soon. Take care and subscribe to our channel.